Okay, let's do Tammany Hall. This is the new Kickstarter edition. Wow, what a solid box this is. By Pandasaurus. Now, I'm going to go over the rules. I've seen about 6 other people have done walkthroughs of the rules and everything. You probably don't want to listen to that part of my talk. Largely, that's just to refresh the rules for myself. In some cases it works well. Maybe my style helps some people, so what the hell, I'll put it in place. But the big thing, the big reason I'm doing this is, well, I want to cover the game. I also want to give you a chance maybe to see some of the components for the new version. We can take a peek at that, like an unboxing. Very, very nice board. A little bit of concern here. Some of the there's these special ability markers here. They're kind of a little hard to discern some of the times. I think these guys are new little pieces for the Kickstarter, these little cards for the different positions. There's no place to put them on the board. You kind of throw them up there. Eventually players will be holding those. We'll see they're handed out in kind of a junta-like manner, with the mayor gets to assign offices to different players. They're just little bonuses within the game. What else you got? One little concern, these black discs for Slander. Same color as one of the player discs. Could be a little bit of a disturbance. Largely, the game kind of avoids using the same color for things. So what you have here are these are the ethnicity colors, and you got your well, we got yeah, these are your wasps, mix. What do we got? Krauts, and these are the wops. Yeah, we're gonna do equal opportunity. Fun. It's to get in kind of the spirit of the game, to tell you the truth. Ethnic politics was such a big part of New York City at this point. And this is trying to capture that, not so much in feel, it's doing it as a Euro game. But it's one that caught my interest enough that I was actually willing to kickstart it. Now, there were some problems with the Pandasaurus Kickstarter, not in terms of the components. The game itself came out wonderfully. Everything is top-notch on here. Especially, and I'm the only person who does this, the bag, man, this soft velvety bag. It's just wonderful to. Let me see about the inside though. Yeah, even the inside's nice. It's backside of velvet. There's these stickers, which you would be putting on the discs, I guess. They don't really serve a lot of help. I mean, you don't have them on the cubes. Why on the discs? I chose not to do them. I feel like they kind of detract from the elegance of the appearance of the game to have all those stickers. Kind of like there used to be a stickered version of Diplomacy. It kind of felt funny to have that. I don't know. I can understand why some people would get a kick out of it, and it's a cheap enough thing to add into the game. Of course, it being there made me want to use it. So let's go over what the rules are here. Because this is a Euro, your goal is to get victory points. Great. Okay. But you do get them by winning elections, which is kind of nice. We have, like I said, we have these discs are to indicate influence with certain ethnicities. These cubes are going to be the actual populations themselves. Now, we'll talk a little bit about how the game is set up, because it's set up differently in the different number of players. Incidentally, it works well enough in 2. It's a pretty decent game in 2 players. It doesn't sell for that. It doesn't claim that it works that way, but my wife and I played it, and we had a good time. Well, I had a good time. She didn't really get the strategy behind it, but that's okay. That sometimes happens. Area control type things sometimes don't work too well for her. And there's a lot of dicking over in here, which she doesn't really like. The little cubes are going to indicate different population bases, which kind of tell you when you can use those discs. Okay, for the players, you have these little dudes. The little dudes with bowlers are your ward bosses. I don't know if these are just a Kickstarter advantage or if everybody got these little dudes with top hats. I mean, come on. Might as well give them to everyone, right? There's not a lot of additional stuff here for supporting it. They are used to mark victory points, and then the second one is used to mark which office you have. Now you also have a card for that, so, but it's helpful to see, if you don't want to paw through everybody else's stuff. Boy, that reminds me of Pax Porfiriana or whatever. You really have to paw through everybody's stuff for that. That was really perhaps the biggest minus of it as a game, was having to walk over and look at everybody's stuff to be aware of it. This would not have that issue. I mean, they'd have one card in front of them that you'd have to know about. So, what about the different setups? Well, if you're playing in 3 players, and this use the 3-player rules straight up for a 2-player game, and it works fine. All you're going to do is grab the first set of immigrants there from Zone 1, and they're going to be scattered at random, with the exception of Tammany Hall, which gets Irishmen, throughout Zone 1, which is delimited by this border. If you're playing with more players, more zones start the game in play. But as you go through the game with smaller number of players, say a 3-player game, you do add the additional zones, and these extra things add into them. I'm going to be playing, of course, with 5 players. I like doing the full boat, and I've never seen it played that way. I've only played a 2-player, so hey, it'll be more interesting. What else do we have? Anything? Not too much, so let's get started. Okay, well, the setup, you grab these guys, you shake them up, and you spread them at random, with the exception of the Tammany Hall ones. And we're going to be filling all 3 zones. I'll do that just before the playthrough. It's nothing too surprising. It shakes up some of the ethnicities a little bit, but that limited effect on play, to tell you the truth. Okay. Players are going to get some stuff too, right? So one thing you'll notice is there's no blue cubes on the board. There's a blue ethnicity, that's the Italians. They can only come in through immigration. There weren't a lot of Italians in New York City at this time. This is about the beginning of the Italian immigration period. So in each year, the game is divided into two segments. First of all, election cycles, and there's going to be 4 election cycles. And then in each election cycle, there's 4 years. Now, in each year, the first thing that happens is Castle Garden is going to get a number of immigrants drawn from this bag, just at random, added to it, equal to the number of players plus 1. That'll allow you to add more ethnicities to the board, essentially. Okay, then oh, I'm sorry, that's if it's empty during a player's turn. There's really just, there's really not a player's turn there. Then we go to the office benefit, phase 2. Let me see how this is written. I'm just making sure if I did it right. In player order, each player completes phases 1 and 2. After everyone's done that, then we go, okay, so yeah, you take a player turn, and that'll be determined in player order. The person with the most victory points, I think, has to go first. I don't remember here. We'll get to that later. It's been a couple of weeks since I played it, and I'm already forgetting it. And it's not a hard game at all. Okay, so first each player checks if Castle Garden's empty, they get a pile of new immigrants to put on the board. Then they get to take what's sort of the meat of their turn, right? Let me make sure I've got this right, because I did it wrong last time. Each player completes phases 1 and 2. After all players have completed these 2, then we go to phase 3. Phase 3 is just the cleanup at the end of the year. Great. That's not worded well for me. Okay. The office benefit is one of the options you can take during your turn. Now, phase 2 of your turn, the things you do, those can be done in any order you like. Each of the different offices has a specific benefit, and we can kind of go through these. The mayor has nothing. His bonus came to him when he got elected. The deputy mayor, on his turn, is able to grab a political favorite of his color's choice. Now, in 2 players, you tend not to hand out all of these. I mean, you only have to hand out one, and there's a lot of them that are fairly powerful and a couple that are fairly weak. So you tend to be thinking about the weak ones to give to your opponent. Chief of Police, you can remove an immigrant cube from any ward and return it to the bag. But you can't take the last cube from the ward. That would be ethnic cleansing or something. The council president. The council president has these little silver things. He's allowed to drop one of these into a ward, and that locks it. That prevents any more ward bosses from being placed there, and we'll see how they go in a minute, or any new immigrants from going in there. It kind of freezes where the vote is at that time. Now, he can only play 1 per year of these, obviously, because he only gets 1 action per year of that type, but he can only play 2 of these little cylinders over the course of an election cycle. That gets refreshed for the next cycle. The precinct, and that's the one that I was handing out consistently because it seemed pretty weak. The precinct chairman, you can move an immigrant cube from one ward to an adjacent ward. You can't move the last remaining cube in a ward. The immigrant cube must be moved to a ward that already contains at least 1 cube, i.e., it's a ward that's already active. So in the 5-player game, all the wards are going to have a cube in them, and that's never going to change. It may change which cube it's in there as the populations move around. Okay, so those are some special abilities that you have, and of course those are described before the main part of the game. The main part, you have the main part of your action, you have 2 choices. Place pieces on the board. You can either put 2 of your little ward bosses, and let's see if I got any of these open. Not that you're going to learn anything by me placing things on the board, because I can just place them anywhere that is in the game, essentially. Okay, or I can place 1 ward boss on the board and take an immigrant cube out of the castle garden space, which is actually down here, not here. And I can put that on the board somewhere. And these can be the same spaces, different spaces, whatever. Okay? Ward bosses are going to get me votes. Immigrants get me the ability to use influence, is really the main key to them. Okay, and then the final thing is, in all but the first election cycle, each player is allowed to spend 1 Slander cube, 1 Slander disc. Wait. Yeah, 1 Slander disc over the course of a term. Doing so is to target another player. And you want to make sure you do a Slander in each term, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. You can't do it in the 1st. Or else you're kind of wasting something you have. I'm not sure why there's 3 discs for each player. In a sense, 1 for each would make more sense, and you hand them out again each term. I would actually probably prefer that, but whatever, because this is a little confusing having so many. Okay, so what happens when you slander an opponent is you slander one of their ward bosses. And the way you do that is you spend an influence disc equal to the color of one of the immigrant cubes in that area. And then they have to remove their ward boss. Now, you're allowed to make that slander spread by spending 2 more discs to remove a ward boss, but I don't know if it has to be the same player. Nope. Okay, so you can spend 2 more discs, gotta be the same color, to move the slander into another adjacent district. What's adjacent? I assume adjacent is containing a border. That's not really clear through something that you use throughout the game for anything else. So this one's going to cost you 2 discs. You have to have the same kind of discs. You have to have the same kind of immigrants, and you can remove a second ward boss from another player. It has to be a different district, though. Okay. Well, after everybody's taken their turns in order, and who goes first? Good question. Okay, at the beginning of the game it's random. It's going to be that guy. But after that it's going to be clockwise after whoever is the mayor. The mayor is going to be the first player. Okay. So, where were we? End of the year. After everybody's taken a turn, the year marker moves forward. Yeah, you had to see that. And play resumes with the first player taking another turn. Once a term, 4 years, is completed, then we have an election. At this time, when the election is happening, I guess, Castle Garden is cleared out and thrown back in the bag. Alright. What about the elections? And there's no way it can get cleared out during a player's turn, so... yeah, there is. I lied. Right? Well, see, this is what's weird. No. At this time... so this is ambiguous. This could be at the end of a term, or this could be at the end of the year. We were doing it at the end of the year. Who knows which one it's meant to be. It's not that big a deal, but it does randomize things more if it's every year. Okay. At the end of every 4th year, the election is held in each ward that contains immigrant cubes. Well, that's all the wards in play. In my game, it's going to be all the wards. What you do is you start with the first ward, and you follow the arrows, and eventually you get to the end of the first region, and then you go to the second region, and you actually start with the 9th ward here and work your way through. And you can see they're kind of screwed up, but that gives you the pattern for it. Elections are resolved as follows. Each ward boss you have in an area gives you a vote. If you do not have a ward boss in the area, you're not in that election. But if you do have a ward boss, you're allowed to spend immigrant discs matching the immigrants present in that region. In a secret bid, everybody puts their fist down with what they're going to bid. And you're going to, the winner of the region is going to be the person who has the most ward bosses plus discs bid. The discs bid are spent forever. The ward bosses stay on the map briefly. Okay. If somebody wins, they get to keep one ward boss in the area. If nobody wins, there are no ward bosses in the area. Everything else gets removed at that point. Okay? So you don't want to have a lot of ward bosses in an area to win because you're expending a lot of effort just like you'd be expending bid discs, but on the other hand, sometimes you want to win things. Now, some of these areas over here near the tip, on the coastal areas, have little bonuses. And there's also Tammany Hall, which we can get to in a moment. If the bonus is a cube, it means you get to put a cube on the board. But I don't know where it comes from. There we go. You're allowed to place an immigrant cube of your choice out of the bag in any legitimate ward. That can allow you to kind of infiltrate a ward with a color that you have a lot of discs for, or make things interesting for a fight between other players. These guys allow you to pick a disc of your choice, which is just pure bonus, right? You have an extra vote or power somewhere. Okay? After you make it through all the elections, it's time to get bonuses. Well, whoever has the most Irish cubes that they have won the election in will get 3 discs of that color. Yeah. They'll get 3 political favor discs of the Green, the Irish, and then you do the same going throughout the rest. So winning a minority group gets you more power for the next election. If it's tied, everybody who ties gets that power, unlike with the election itself. Now you're going to get victory points here. I'm sorry. That's the end of the game now. You get 1 victory point for each ward you win. If you win Tammany Hall's ward, you get 2 victory points. And that's not where it really is. And then the person who won the most wards becomes the mayor. Now that could be tied. If that's tied, the person with the most political favor chips in their possession wins the election. And then it goes down to political favor chips by color, with green being first, then white, then orange, then blue. If nobody can still win after all of that, well, there's no mayor. And that's terrible. And the city offices are all returned, and you guys have been thrown out of power completely. Okay. Speaking of the city offices, when the mayor comes to play, he gets this. He gets himself 3 bonus victory points on top of the fact that he probably got the most points on the wards. And then he assigns those additional offices. He has to give each player 1. At the end of the game, you're going to get additional victory points. A player who has the most political favor chips in any particular color scores 2 victory points. If it's a tie, they each score 2. If you didn't use slander points, each slander chip is worth 1. That's why you hold on to them. And whoever has the most victory points wins the game. If there's a tie there, use the tiebreaker rules for the mayor. If that still ties and somebody is the mayor, then they win the game. And that's it. It turns out it's actually really a simple playing game. But I got some enjoyment out of it, and I'm hoping to see how well it actually solos, because it doesn't seem like it has a lot of real, there's not real skullduggery going on or anything like that. It's just this piece placement thing. But I think it's actually going to carry over fairly well. Games like this tend to feel kind of nice, almost like Go. So we'll see how it actually plays out.